My June TBR is completely out of control right now. I'm finishing a 700-page fantasy novel, which is book 7 out of 14. I am reading a book about the sacraments and a book about preaching that's over 150 years old. Meanwhile, with only 2 weeks left of June, I'm trying to squeeze in an dystopian epic space opera book that is the 4th book in the series. I'm also trying to read a book about vampires and maybe even sprinkle in some Russian literature and Greek mythology, all within 2 weeks. At this point, I think I'm less of a reader and more of a hostage of my TBR. But either way, regardless of how much of this I get through, I want to give you a reading update and talk about my pile of possibilities, as they seem to be calling it, around book 2. Either way, let's start off with the book that is taking me the longest to read. So this book right here is Crown of Swords, the 7th book in the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. And I've really been enjoying it. And one thing that I'm actually really happy about is that this book is only 700 pages. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, only 700 pages, but compared to some of the other chunkers that were in this series, I think this one was like 900 something. Just seeing that shorter page count kind of gives me some hope that maybe things move a little bit quicker in these next books than they were moving in the past. While there's some great action and some tense storytelling and cool character development, these books tend to drag and be a little long-winded, and some of the things just probably could have been skipped over or shortened, definitely condensed. But I'm still enjoying the read, and hopefully things continue to pick up. The next book cannot be any more different from the one that I was just talking about. This short little book packs a huge punch. It's called The Truth That We Can Touch by Tim Chester. And this little book right here ended up turning into, just from a reading experience to basically a coloring book with my highlighter, because every single page had so many really cool and interesting things to it. Things that I had never thought of from that angle before, or like perspectives that I had never really looked at. It talks about baptism and it talks about communion in ways that are super relatable and understandable, but so deep. I mean, even little things like at one point he says that baptism and communion are the gospel in 3D, in physical form. And I really just appreciate that kind of writing that helps us to think about the gifts that the Lord has given us and how he can move through those things in our lives in a way that's impactful and powerful. Then I have to confess, because this book right here, Lectures to My Students, was on my TBR at the beginning of the year. And I really kind of made it about halfway through and just ran out of steam. It wasn't because this book was bad. It wasn't because I didn't find things helpful. In fact, I have a ton of stuff in here that's highlighted as well. It's just I got distracted and went from one book to another to another. And if you're a reader, you know exactly what that feels like. So poor Charles Spurgeon just got left on the nightstand and never picked up for a really long time. But I am going to try to do my best to get right back into this, right where I left off, because there were a lot of really cool things in here that I had never thought of, and that I've been thinking a lot lately about preaching and how we can best use that speaking gift that God has given us to be able to deliver his word to people who need it the most. There are also things in this book that are super controversial. I don't know if it's just a product of his time, but there are a few lines in here that I would love to hear your thoughts on. So I might just turn this one into a full-length review. I'm definitely going to make The Truth We Can Touch by Tim Chester a full-length review, so keep an eye out for those. Let's go back to the desk. These next few books might be considered a bit controversial in the Christian booktube world. The first one is Iron Gold by Pierce Brown. This is the 4th book in the Red Rising trilogy. I have an entire video talking about the Red Rising trilogy and all the drama and controversy that can come along with it in Christian booktube. However, I am going to continue the series. I really do enjoy it. I think it's so well written. I think the plot is magnificent. Honestly, it's just like so enthralling. The characters are so vivid. The dialogue is great. There are very questionable things that happen in these books, but if you want to know more about how I think about reading, go check out that video that I'll link at the end so you can check it out. But there are so many things in this book that make you think about Christian themes such as redemption and power and responsibility and forgiveness and all these different things about trying to make the world right and how we do that, and sometimes how we can lose our way. So I'm going to continue the series, and I will let you know my thoughts about that one when it's done. This book might also stir a few feathers, and it is Dracula by Bram Stoker. I haven't read this book since grad school. I wrote a few papers on this book in different courses as I was an English major, but I've never really sat down and thought about this book from a purely Christian perspective with all the literary stuff to the side. So I know there are Christian themes in here, and there's much less about the horror of it all. It's not like Hollywood as we think about it. I also remember it having a really cool epistolary style where it's like letters and things like that. And I know that opening chapter was great. I remember that. So I'm looking forward to reading this and reading Dracula as a Christian novel. If you think that's interesting, let me know in the comments below. And to wrap the whole thing up, I have 2 more books that I'm hoping to get to. If I can't make it in June, I'm just going to shift them over to July, and that's fine. The first one is Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. And he has been getting a lot of traction recently, especially in the Christian world, as a lot of people are reading the brothers Karamazov. I think that's how you say it. But this book, Crime and Punishment, is probably his best known novel, and I'm kind of ashamed to say, as an English teacher with a master's degree in English and all that kind of stuff, that I have never read this book. So why not throw in a little bit of Russian literature and deal with things like guilt and redemption for a nice light summer read? It's definitely gonna be a journey, and I think that I can learn a lot from a book like this. Speaking of journeys, I want to read a little bit of Homer. No, not that Homer, this Homer. Christopher Nolan is coming out with the Odyssey movie in July, and so in June I want to read the Iliad, and then in July I want to read the Odyssey. Again, I've read these in college before, and I teach the Odyssey to my high school freshman classes, albeit an abridged version, but I do want to read it. I haven't read it in a long time in preparation for watching the film. I know there's been some backlash about the film as well. If you're planning on watching it, or if you like reading Greek mythology, please let me know in the comments below. So that's everything. I don't know what I'm gonna get to, but that's the beauty of this whole reading thing, is that you make plans. Readers are really good at making plans, and then something happens and maybe I'll read 1 or 2 books, but it's better for me to plan these things out and think about them. And so I just wanted to share that with you. These are the books that I'm planning on reading. What are you reading this month? And if any of these books sound interesting, make sure you like, comment down below, and let me know which one sounds the most interesting out of all of them. Thanks for watching. I'll leave a video here at the end that's related to some of the stuff that we talked about here. You should check it out. And if you're here this far, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Do all the cool YouTube stuff so that you could help support this channel. It's absolutely free to you, and it makes me feel good knowing that people are actually enjoying my videos. My name is Eric. Stay blessed. Stay bookmarked.